What's up, 12s? We are back on the Seahawks Collective presented by Hog Media. And if you're new here, welcome. We talk all things Seahawks. I don't know, maybe because they are the best team in the world, at least for now, for the time being. And Rob Staten from the Seahawks Draft Blog can tell us how they might be able to sustain that with future talent. So let's bring in our Seahawks insiders to hear what's up with all of them. Michael Shandugar covering the Hawks for The Athletic, Brian Nemhauser, our Hawk blogger, and as I mentioned before, Rob Staten from the Seahawks Draft Blog. Let us know if you have any questions for our experts and just your excitement for the Seahawks opportunity to run it back. But it has been a minute since we have all been together. So I want to get a quick recap on what's been keeping each of you busy. And Rob, I'm sure you've probably been the busiest. So what's up with you?
Well, I watched every second of the combine, which is quite sad, I suppose, in a way, and speaks to my social life. That I actually watched all of that. But I do enjoy this time of year and very much in the draft mix at the moment. Lots of stuff going on there. I feel like I've written about 7,000 words per article over the last few days. So, enjoying it and very much. And, despite all of that, despite all of the draft work, I am sat here kind of hoping that we're going to see a trade soon. So, I'd be quite down for not having as much draft talk and having a bit more Max Crosby talk, actually, because I do think that that is the key to the offseason for the Seahawks. But I'm sure we'll get on to all of that down the line.
Well, you gave us a nice little teaser, Rob, about what's on your mind and on your heart. But Brian, we'll go to you before we get to all of that. I know you released your book, We Did Not Care, quite literally right after the Super Bowl ended. How have things gone on your end?
They're great. They're great. Yeah. People can get the book at hawkblogger.com/book. And I think still at Costco in the Northwest, at least, and Target. And I think I've heard people getting them at Circle K's, Barnes and Noble. So all sorts of places. It's been fun. And I got to say, AB, it was such a thrilling season to follow the team and to watch them, not only during the season, but through the draft process, through the free agency process, all the way through it. It's just a really long time. And I cannot believe we're already back to the beginning again. I cannot wrap my head around that the league year opens in just a few days. So, I got back from the combine a few days ago. It was great to see a lot of people, had a lot of great conversations with people. We obviously met with Mike McDonald. John Schneider was on the show. So, lots of really great stuff. And now just looking forward to real news, which is already hitting and going to keep hitting the rest of this week. Can I make one little rant, though? Like just at the beginning here?
Go ahead. Go get it out now.
So this might just be me, but it is such a pet peeve of mine that like literally anybody can tweet out, like, I've got a source telling me that Joe Schmo is going to sign with the Seahawks, or the Seahawks are going to trade for whoever. And people are so thirsty for any kind of juicy rumor that they're like, this is now happening and it's sourced per such and such. And it's all such BS. Like there are very, 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 very few people that truly have sourced reports out there. And the people that do are very careful about when they share that information, because if you burn a source by sharing something that the team doesn't want or whoever, you usually get information from that source again. So it's just this thing that drives me a little bit crazy right now. There's a lot of educated guesses masquerading as sourced reports. I encourage people to really follow the people that have consistently broken news and not folks that are just throwing stuff against the wall. That's my little rant. I'll get off of it for now.
Well, no, it's good to know and it's good to be aware of, because it is easy when you're on social media and online so much to become numb to that and just believe anything you see, even if it's silly and something, like a DIY, something that you see on Instagram or TikTok or Reel. It's like, oh, well, I know how to do that. Well, who's the source, right? And so I think that's a good reminder from Brian. But Mike, I'm hoping that you got some well-deserved rest following the season. But what have you been up to?
I have bad news. I have not. I got both the kids with me. Both of them are sick right now as well. I was in Indy for a week. anyone who's been a beat writer in Indy or someone trying to chase those sources knows you do not sleep in Indianapolis at all. That's okay. Working, I'm getting caught up on draft stuff. Just a lot of company stuff. Really, I'm going to New York next week for a thing at the New York Times. We had like a super long summit on the Monday of the combine. I was there for like 5 days. Indy is crazy. But yeah, just been working. As you guys have noticed, we haven't been doing the pod much, kind of taking a break a little bit. We'll do another pod this week though. Seahawks man to man. But yeah, not a lot of sleep though. A lot of dadding, a lot of diaper changing, doctor visits. Because the offseason is when I do all my like adult stuff. You know, we're getting our taxes done next week. We took this yesterday, doctor visits today. You know, it's hard to do all this stuff when I'm at VMAC 5 days out of the week or traveling or whatever. So yeah, I've just been catching up on life, really, and doing a lot of diaper changing last 3 weeks.
Well, that's funny. Hey, they got to put you on. Maybe they can get that stuff done at the VMAC. Put these guys on the payroll for them being there so long. That's important. But I guess something interesting that I did recently, I believe it was last week, I did a one-on-one sit down with Jalen Sundell for Sports Spectrum, our media outlet there. And it was really interesting. He told me that in the fourth quarter, Gray Zabel dislocated his thumb. Was this common knowledge? Did you all know this? I had no idea. And he was like, you got to put my thumb back in. He's like, dude, I'm trying to listen to the play. And it's little details like that I think are fun to find out after the game, and just to hear his excitement and celebration memories from that was really awesome. But there's a lot going on with the Seattle Seahawks, as you all mentioned, so I want to get to it. But I guess to start, let's just talk about the fourth offensive coordinator in 4 years, Brian Fleury, coming from the 49ers as the run game coordinator and tight ends coach. Seahawks part ways with Clint Kubiak, now Raiders head coach. Rob, I'll start with you. Just what are your initial thoughts on this new hire?
No, I think a difficult situation. Obviously, you've got a lot of candidates who'd already taken jobs. You have a quick turnaround because you've got everything like the combine around the corner, and you've got to start making plans for the new season. You need to get a hire done. The very easy thing to do would have been to hire internally. It would have made your life easier. You reward somebody on your staff, and no one would have complained about that. So I actually think the boldness to go from outside the organization and to go for someone like Brian Fleury says two things. One, that the Seahawks are not interested in just making the easy decisions. And two, that they were obviously impressed with what he had to say when he had his interview. So I'm down for it. I mean, who knows? Like these first-time play callers who get appointed, you can never say for sure how this is going to go. We'll just have to find out. We'll see how it goes next season. It's not as if they've signed him into a 15-year contract. Like if it doesn't work out, I'm sure they can kind of make some pivot and make some decisions there in the future. But I am intrigued by it, and we'll see how it goes.
And Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it you in the presser that asked, your first-time play caller, or maybe it was someone had asked, your first-time play caller, and Mike McDonald said, I do think maybe that's a bit overrated. Like it's got to be your first time at some point. What are your thoughts on just this hire as well?
Yeah. The question I think you're remembering is I asked Mike McDonald, how do you vet, how do you assess someone who's never called plays before when you're hiring them to be play caller? It seems like a tough thing to do. And Mike did say he thinks that's overrated. And I think it's been interesting to see the things that Mike McDonald has tried to undercut out there. He talks about schemes being overrated. He talks about play calling being overrated. He talks about titles being overrated. Like, I think Mike kind of sees this as, you know what? We're going to get the smartest people that I respect and that respect me and respect the players and respect the organization in the same room. We're going to put the problems that we're trying to solve in front of all of us, and we're going to work like crazy to be the best at solving those problems and creating problems for other people of anyone else in the NFL. I think he thinks about it like a think tank to some extent, right? And so when you look, AB, at the situation with that lens, you're like, well, yeah, we've got really, really smart, capable people in the organization already. You've got Justin Outen, and you've got, Mac Brown in the tight ends room, and you've got a bunch of these guys, Jake Peets, that are super smart. But if you put one of them as your OC, you don't really have space to bring in someone like Brian Fleury. Alternatively, you bring in Brian Fleury and you still get to have the other guys there. Now, maybe maybe they, soothe some egos by maybe there's a little bit extra money. Justin Outen went from run game specialist to run game coordinator, maybe a little bit of bump in salary with that. I don't know. But I think Mike Macdonald's looking at it as Brian Fleury is going to bring expertise that no one else is going to be able to bring to that room. And everyone else is going to surround him and support him along that path. So I think that's a big part of why he made the decision he made. But I also wouldn't cut Brian Fleury short. He clearly impressed Mike Macdonald in that interview, or they wouldn't have been in this situation. And I don't know if you saw the press conference, AB, but there was serious bromance there. Like there was a lot of like sideward glances and like haha, like laughing at each other's jokes, completing each other's sentences. So yeah, I think they became pretty fast friends, it seems like.
Well, it's funny for you to pick up on that because I even noticed that I think Brian Fleury had said like, oh, we just were geeking out together about it. And that's the exact word choice that you would use for Mike Macdonald and how he approaches the game of football. I'm curious for you, Mike, just observing the new coach and what people have said about him. What's his personality? Like, what's he like? What can we expect from this guy?
I missed I basically had to take a week off after the parade. I was like, I'm gonna pass out in the VMAC if I go. So I watched it. It's almost like tradition at this point. I think I was on leave when they hired Kubiak. I was on paternity leave when they hired Mike Macdonald. So if anyone gets hired in February, I guess now it's a tradition. I just don't go. I think same thing with Grubb as well. I missed whenever he was introduced. I don't even remember when that was. But in terms of the hire itself, a few things stood out to me. One, Mike Macdonald sounded very much like my teenage self or my college self trying to get a job right out of school. And then, they say, how much experience do you have? Well, I'll have experience if you give me some, right? Like you hire me, then I will be able to be experienced. So I thought I got a kick out of that from my couch watching that. The second thing was that to an extent, Mike is right. Like in general, with any job, a prerequisite for being able to do the job is not having done the job before. There are other ways to assess that. That is true. And the third thing, though, is where I'm kind of like skeptical is too strong of a word, whatever the tier down from that is, because sure, can he do the job? Probably. But being a first-time play caller on a team with expectations, high expectations, I'd say, is a little trickier than like whoever's calling plays for like the Jets these days, like I don't even know who that is, but like if that was a first time play caller, I'd be like, well, okay, it's the Jets, they're rebuilding, they only have a quarterback, like they're just trying to, keep the fireman dude happy, like there's different expectations. This team's trying to win a world championship for the second straight time, so it's just a little different, it's like a sliding scale of like how concerned I will be when someone's doing the thing for the first time, not to say you can't do it, but that's the first thing that came to mind. I'm glad Brian asked about it at the press conference because that's probably what I would have asked as well if I was there. It's like, yo, this guy ain't done the job before, and you want him to be like one of the best at it, like right off rip, pretty much. Now they're the hunted, they're the hunted instead of the hunter right now. It's a totally different bag, So and there's just natural growing pains, no matter how qualified you are for calling plays. Just natural growing pains when you haven't done it. There just is. There's going to be times in week 7, week 9, just going to go through stuff. You have to problem solve stuff in real time, and you just haven't banked those reps to be like, oh, I fixed this before back in such and such, or me and such worked together. We fixed this before in this time, or we saw this front, this scheme, this blitz, this disguise, this safety rotation, whatever. It's just logged reps you just get from doing the job. So I enjoyed Mike's answer because that was. Honestly, when I watched the press conference, all I really cared about was that answer, really. I was like, all right, how is this guy who hasn't done the job going to do the job at a really high level for a team trying to win a championship? Because like I said, it's just different. Just feel like there's different sliding scales for calling plays right now for the Titans versus the Seattle Seahawks. You know what I mean? That's just a totally different world right now. The good thing is, last thing on this, is that I do think calling plays in the NFL is kind of how I view college coaches in football right now, where it's like there's two types of guys, or not two types of guys, two tiers almost, where it's like there's the guys who can come in. If your program stinks, you're 3-9. There's the guys who can just flip that. There is. We see it, a lot. But I also think there's those guys like if your coach leaves after you're like 8-4, there's a lot of guys who can come in and just keep you at 8-4. Maybe they don't even take you to 10-2. I'm doing a lot of math here. But if you just come in, it's like, all right, keep us at 8-4, keep us at 9-3, keep us at 7-6. I just think there's a bigger pool of guys who can do that. And I to bring that back to the Seahawks, I do think that makes me feel a little bit about it for Brian Fleury, because it's like, all right, you don't need to rebuild the thing. The foundation's there. I think the other question that stuck out to me, the other answer was someone's like, what's the offense going to look like? He said something to the effect of, it's going to look like the one that just won the Super Bowl. Great. It should.
That was the best answer. That was
That's
the best
great.
way
Yeah.
to put it.
Those are the only two answers that really jumped out to me, was that one from Brian's question. And then, whoever asked the other one was like, yeah, it's going to look like the one that just won the whole thing. Duh. Like, sometimes it really is just that simple. Like, don't just do what we just did, tweak it a little bit. But if he had to be a first-time guy and rebuild it, I'd be like petrified, because that's a lot harder of a job.
Completely agree with Mike. And the two quick things I'd add to what Mike was saying is, one, to illustrate his point, Fleury doesn't even know if he wants to call plays from the field or the box yet, because he's never done it. So, that's just like where you're going to call the plays, not what plays you're calling. And then maybe more encouraging or optimistically, Fleury did have a good answer about, he has been on the defensive side and the offensive side, which I think is really helpful. And I think part of what connected him with Mike McDonald. But you talk about what play callers actually do and those massive sheets they've got of all the plays. They've got first down, second down, by yardage, by where they are on the field, by situation. All that's ahead of time, where everybody else in that group can help contribute. And then you're really just picking from the menu during that day. And so it's not quite as daunting, maybe, as I think a lot of us think it is to start with. But to Mike's point, you got to start somewhere, and you probably aren't going to always make the right choice early on. So, it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
It will be. And Brian mentioned just his defensive background. How do you see that impacting maybe just his ability to connect with what Mike McDonald is doing on his defense?
I don't know. I always kind of think it's one of those things that if you want to find positives, you can twist that into a positive. I suppose that he's got like a variety of backgrounds. The key is going to be for this to succeed is can he come up with a game plan to keep opponents on their toes? Can he make the adjustments in game when you've sort of revealed what you are doing? How do you pivot off that? How do you set things up? He is going to have a big challenge because the expectation has been raised with Jackson Smith-Njigba that he is going to be, amazingly productive from here on in, and he is now about to be paid to warrant the consistent, massive production. He is going to have to find a way to continue to make Jackson Smith-Njigba one of the very, very best in the game, not just at his position at any. And he's going to have to deal with a running game that's probably going to have some upheaval and change at running back. So there are a few things there. I'm hoping that his experience with George Kittle may mean that he will be a useful coach for the development of Elijah Arroyo and the further development of AJ Barner. But we're just going to have to see. I personally think the key to everything this offseason is simply, can you enable this defense to remain towards the top end? If not first, you could make an argument that the Texans was a slightly better unit, but you're splitting hairs. The Texans, the Seahawks, they're up there at the top. If you stay in that range with the talent you have on offense, you should be able to have an excellent season. And the key for me is making sure that you keep a great defense to go into next year. And as I'm sure we will come on to, there are decisions that are going to have to be made pretty soon in the next 7 to 10 days that will determine whether the Seahawks can do that.
Well, it is pretty crazy. And for Brian Fleury, if you can't beat him, join him. So welcome to Seattle, Washington. It's pretty fun. We have parades and stuff like that. It's pretty great. But he did say that it's more about how you play than what you're actually doing schematically. So let's focus on what players will be able to make that type of play come alive. We did see news break today that Jake Bobo will be an unrestricted free agent. And yesterday we did find out that they will hold on to Ty Okada and George Halani, all three guys who were undrafted free agents coming to Seattle. And even George Halani, like all those guys had big plays this season. But George Halani, if you think back to his big special teams play against the Steelers in the fourth quarter, like game-altering touchdown, even though these might not be the headliners for the team, all guys who I can think back to big moments when I was jumping up and down cheering because they had an impact play for the Seattle Seahawks. So for you, Brian, what did you think about when you saw these two pieces of news come through?
Yeah, I mean, definitely expected on both Okada and Halani because those, to your point, AB, they had really big step up seasons for both of them. In particular, Tai Okada. I mean, this guy went from in the first game of the season being an absolute not positive part of that game to the point where I think he played 6 or 8 snaps and then was shown the sideline for the rest of that game. And in his defense, he was asked to step in for Nicky Manwari in a role that he hadn't, I don't think is really good, suited for. But then he became a starter at safety for, whether it was an injured Kobe Bryant or an injured Julian Love. And at some point, I don't know that most people could really tell a significant difference when he was in there versus those other guys. And that's a massive compliment to Tai Okada. You can think back to the interception he had in Washington. You can think back to a lot of huge hits. Unfortunately, some of them on his own players, but he has been I think a really productive part of that team, and now gives them a little bit more flexibility about what they do with Kobe Bryant. And I don't think the team necessarily expected that before this season. Halani, similarly, I think he could be in for a lot more reps this coming season. And we'll talk, I'm sure, about what's going to happen free agency wise and what some options are there. But I think Halani fits in regardless. And then the Jake Bobo news, it was funny, AB. I was actually literally doing my show this morning on restricted free agents for the Seahawks and why it was more complicated than even I realized, given it's like a $3.5 million cap hit to put a right of first refusal tender on a restricted free agent, meaning that you get to negotiate with that person before they leave. You have 7 free agents, you times that by 3.5 million, you eat up a lot of your cap space. If you're going to put those types of tenders, that's the lowest tender you can put. And so I started looking at Cody White and Jake Bobo, and I'm like, I don't know if I see them putting a tender on both of those guys. And Cody White had kind of eclipsed Jake Bobo, both special teams and as a receiver, before he got hurt. So I was wondering, and then sure enough, during the show, it was reported by, I think it was Jeremy Fowler, that Jake Bobo is not going to be tendered, which means he'll be an unrestricted free agent. Doesn't mean for sure he's not coming back. But my best guess is somebody's going to value him at a level, and he's going to value probably going someplace where he's going to get a chance to be a receiver, which he really hasn't had a chance to do as much in Seattle. A lot more blocking, a lot more special teams. So I think it's no-bo for Bobo, probably in Seattle.
Oh, I don't like to hear that. I don't like to hear that at all. But it is hard when so many of your ready squad guys perform so well. Even Cody White, like thinking about the plays, the big plays that he made, sprinkled out through this season. Mike, when you look at this news, what comes to mind?
Yeah, all expected across the board, including Jake. Just kind of tried to have as many conversations as I could in Indianapolis with how many people that I believe are privy to that sort of information. Because not what you learn in Indianapolis too, to Brian's earlier rant, I should say, about who has information. Not every organization is structured the same. Like in Seattle, loosely, a low-level quote-unquote employee could know something of significance to something like, oh, we're about to trade for Jamal Adams. In some buildings, the GM will tell like one other person that they're about to trade. We're about to trade for Michael Parsons. There's not every building's the same. So you could be talking to somebody like, hey, I'm the director of plural personnel for the Titans. Okay, well, you might know a damn thing. Whereas like,
hey, I'm in Nashville right now. You want me to go do a couple laps around the new stadium? Just let me know. Live downtown.
Yeah, I will. You should. Actually, just downtown Nashville is great anyway. But yeah. So you learn that in Indianapolis too. Like you could have the same position as someone at another franchise and be privy to very different information. I learned that. But anyway, as it pertains to the Seahawks, yeah, I was expecting all those, and yeah, also the Brian's point about like the RFAs and stuff. Yeah, I mean, you pivot from as a beat writer. Somebody asked me about it at our summit, because that's where all the New York Times people show up. It's like, oh, well, hard parts about being a beat writer. It's like, yeah, you spend like the fall knowing all of this football and knowing all of these interpersonal relationship skills for your job, and then like you got to be like the CBA expert starting like February. And I read the CBA, at least most of it. That thing is dense. But it's so many just like random language and long ass sentences that are just really simple. It's dumb. But yeah, the stuff adds up very, very, very quickly. Cap versus cash. is something I've gotten more familiar with, and just like cash spending, the minimum requirement to spend over a certain period for each team. Like it gets real complicated. It's like that cap space number can mean a lot for different ownership groups and different front offices and everything. But I do think they'll be fine if they do let Jake go. I would be sad to see Jake bounce. But yeah, the Ty Okada thing, it is a little bit of a buffer for Kobe. I think that said, if they were let Kobe walk, I would be very concerned about like, all right, they do need a free safety. Because I don't think Julian Love is that. I think he's a very, like, he can do it in a pinch, like he did against the Panthers, what he did against the Niners in the week 18. Like, he can do it, but I would not want to go into a season with like, all right, Julian Love's my free safety or Ty Okada. I just think it's a totally different skill set, really. So I would be kind of concerned about that. Like, even just last night, they're having me do a mock draft on a bunch of guys I haven't heard of before, like 2 days ago. Shout out to Rob's draft blog. But like, I was looking specifically at like who's got some range in this class, to see, because like if you let Kobe walk, I do think that's something you still need, even if you are bringing back Ty and Julian.
Well, let's say on the defense and just some of those names, those headliner names, Kobe Bryant, Josh Jobe, Josh Jones, Boye Mafe, and Reek Woolen. For you, Rob, out of those defensive names, what name sticks out as maybe most pressing for the Seahawks to retain?
I think it's very hard. I think it's going to be very hard to retain any of them, frankly. There is going to be a Super Bowl tax attached to some of these players. I think this is the dilemma that you have at a situation like this, is that ideally you want to keep everybody together, but you do have to be strict with how much you are prepared to pay these players. There's been a lot of talk in the media that the Jets are basically going around to all of the agents for the safeties and saying, we are going to spend big on safeties. There's been a lot of talk about Caleb Downs' health, which is a real shame in this draft, which maybe suggests that the Jets are going to look at pass rush and linebacker and cornerback in the first couple of rounds, and that maybe they're going to go and splash out on a safety. Now, there are a couple of really good safeties who are not named Kobe Bryant, like Brian Cook and Nick Cross, they might go for, but there are the other teams that then need to, the two teams that are going to lose those, the Chiefs and the Colts, so they're going to have to look at someone like Kobe Bryant. So I do think that the players are probably going to get outpriced. You then have to replace them somehow with 4 draft picks only, and the cap space and the cash will run out quickly once you start paying people. And I kind of have the feeling that you're going to have to just go, okay, let's find a solution at cornerback. Let's find a solution at safety with Ty Okada. The pass rush is we'll probably get onto. And you are going to have to go and find a way to elevate this team in a different way. And the way to elevate this team, okay, we're going to be a little bit worse maybe at corner, a little bit worse at safety. How do you make up for that? By getting a lot better on the edge rush. That's how I think they have to plan this moving forward.
Well, let's talk about that edge rush, because Brian, I know there is one name that is circulating, and maybe a lot of Seattle Seahawks fans might want someone from Kubiak's new team. What are your thoughts on potentially getting Max Crosby?
Yeah, I mean, I've been, public about the fact that I think it makes a lot of sense for Seattle to really go hard after Max Crosby. I think there's reason to think that John Schneider will. You don't have to look that far past his history of when he's thought the Seahawks are a contending team or, already a Super Bowl team. He's traded for Percy Harvin. He's made trades for Jimmy Graham. He's made trades for Sheldon Rankins and Dwayne Brown, like a lot of big trades when he thinks the team, he's not always right about the team being that close to contending. The Leonard Williams trade happened when they were like 7-1 and then got completely destroyed by Mike McDonald's Baltimore Ravens. But I think that John Schneider's not opposed to making a big move. I don't think he values this draft that much. And I want to hear a lot more from Rob about that. I've been looking forward to hearing all his draft insights. But I also look at it and say, I think he's also looking at the 2027 draft. And I think that he is probably thinking about comp picks more this year than he was last year. And if you make a trade, then it doesn't affect the comp pick formula. If you go out and you sign somebody that's an external free agent, it does affect that compensatory pick formula. So I think there's reasons he could do it. I will say that the news that came out today that Jonathan Greenard from the Minnesota Vikings might also be available, and that they're looking for what might be a day 2 pick, which is a second or a third round pick. The difference between, I mean, they're both relatively the same age. I think Max Crosby is definitely a different tier than Grenard, but Grenard's an absolute stud as an edge rusher. So I'm curious what it'll mean for the price tag for Max Crosby. I'm curious if the Raiders are going to get what they're looking for. I don't know that they're going to get 2 firsts and a player the way Micah Parsons returned for the Cowboys. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're not going to get that. And so we'll see. We'll see if the market comes back to Seattle. If it happens, I think it'll happen this week.
Well, I can just imagine what Seattle would be like, and more so what other NFL team fans would be like if Max Crosby did end up going to Seattle. I think it would be just one of these kind of things. You throw the papers up and walk out. So for you, Mike, just with your personal opinion, how legitimate do you think that could possibly be? Is it something that we should keep talking about as a possibility, or just shut it down and not get our hopes up?
No, this is time. Every fan base should get their hopes up right now. Like legitimately. Like that's what makes the NFL, what's the 24 hours all year round is the word I want. Because everyone, Browns fans, Titans, Jets, whatever, you can just have hope, and it dies pretty quickly for a lot of these fan bases.
You just let it loose on those 3 teams.
I just can't think of
any
any
other.
other.
Second time ripping the Jets.
Who's
today.
the other bad teams? I just can't think of the. Oh, Falcons. Falcons are bad.
Falcons,
yeah. There's some other ones. Dolphins. Like you can just Cardinals. Yeah. Now all the bad teams are coming to me, but like right now is to have hope. You can get on these websites between like salary cap constructors and mock drafts, and you can fix your team in like an hour. Like everyone should be able to do that. It's fun. I'm not going to do that, but
that's Rob's job. Rob's doing that for us.
The fact that you can is great. I probably wouldn't pull the trigger on it just because like revisiting some of like John's bad drafts. It's particularly I was just looking at 2021 draft last night. Because I was doing mocks, I was like, yeah, see, I could see in real time where I was like, let's go, let's push the button, let's go, let's get Gabe Jackson, Jamal. They had another trade in there that was terrible. I think like Stephon Sullivan or something is why they didn't have another pick. Like I get it, except the Sullivan one that was bad in real time. But I just like I don't think he needs to repeat that. I think part of why John has been better and his staff, it's not just him, his staff have been better at drafting is because John's better with more bites at the apple. Like I just think, and he's obviously better when he has high picks, but just in general, more bites at the apple. You come into this draft for like 3 picks or something like that. That just seems to be setting yourself up for failure. I do. Not to say 4 is that much better, but I just think the ability to like flip more picks into more picks is better for John than like, all right, we got Max, but like now we need to fill out the rest of the roster, because also the draft doesn't seem that great, this particular one. Just a little like cramming I've been doing the last 72 hours or so. That said, it's the draft itself is still like the best mechanism for making your team elite because you can get elite talent for basically minimum wage. Right? So if you're let's say you're punting on that, right? Cool. What's John, like Brian said, John kind of seems to be, which I think is a bad idea. All right, well, you still need to make your team elite. Okay, well, where? Well, okay. Pay all your guys then. Well, like Rob just said, you're not going to do that, right? You're like, guys are going to get priced out. The cash dries up quickly, like we've been talking about. All right, so where are you going to make the team elite? You can't. It's just dangerous. It's just dangerous to play that game. I think if you're not then going to say, all right, we punt on the draft, but we're going to pay everybody. I would actually wouldn't do that either. But as an idea that you could sell me on that. Or it's like, all right, Mike, I'm not going to. Let's let Rick go get his bag. Let's let Ken go get his bag. Let's get Kobe, Boy. Let's all of them go get paid. Cool. All right, great. You should draft like 7 or 8 guys then. You can't let all those guys walk and then draft like 4 guys and then just bring in like Trey Hendrickson or Max Crosby. I like your team will be like good, but I just think like I've been rewatching a lot of the games, a lot of the broadcasts. Like their margin for error was like they beat the snot out of some teams. But also they had a few games where like even the George Kalani play, like the ball just bounces a little further, right? How different does the Steelers game go? You know what I mean? It got out of hand pretty quickly after that special teams play. But so anyway, the short of what I'm saying is it's fine to discuss. It's cool. Hope is great. Would I do it? No. The more I do this job, the more I lean into like the draft is just by far and away the best way to make your team elite. There's just no limit on what your draft pick can be. It can be an all-pro guy in year one making whatever Gray's able a guy like him makes. So that's where I would lean into more so than just like, all right, let's punt on that and let's let a bunch of our guys walk and then just bring in like one elite guy. That just feels like very 2021-y again. And that was not a good year for the team.
Well, I do want to make sure we have time to talk about that draft that you mentioned, Mike. And I know our very own Rob Staten has been covering it to the fullest. And so, Rob, I'll lead you in with this. Obviously, more so on the free agent side, there is some uncertainty about Kenneth Walker for the Seattle Seahawks. I know that's what a lot of people are seeing in the headlines. He will become an unrestricted free agent. But how do you see that playing out for the Seahawks? And if so, it goes a certain way. What should we know about their potential draft options there?
Yeah, draft options are going to be very limited. It's not a good running back draft. We had a load of running backs drafted last year, and I think we're feeling the effect of that this year. We're not going to see many taken very early. We could see, I think we might see 3 go in the top 70. You might have push maybe 4, but not all of those 4 are going to fit Seattle. I don't know if Emmett Johnson from Nebraska is necessarily a fit for the Seahawks. So it's not, the options are not great there. And then you kind of look at free agency, and the options are not amazing there either. Like I suspect what Adam Schefter was saying earlier today was that, a Tyler Algier or a Kenneth Gainwell or somebody like that is going to end up in Seattle. That's fine. But it has to be at a certain cost. And if they get offered a lot of money in next week, then you ain't going to be signing those players. They are going to wait. They're going to wait this market out, and they're going to bring somebody in. It does mean that you could potentially become significantly weaker at running back. And I'm not somebody who undervalues the running back position. I do think there's a lot of value to be had there. If you get a good running back, it can really do a lot for your team. And I think we've increasingly seen that with some of the better teams in the NFL. But I would also say that if you look at the NFC and the AFC Championship game, the leading rusher in those 2 games was Ramondre Stevenson, who was a 4th-round pick. You got Ken Walker, who was 2nd, and then Blake Corum, 3rd-round pick, and Kyron Wilson, a 5th-round pick, were after him. So I still think the key for the Seahawks here is to fix that. They need to go in with the most beastly defensive line they can come up with. If they bolster that defensive line and this defense continues to be exceptional, I think you can manage the situation at running back. So I understand why they're not going to pay Ken Walker potentially $14-15 million a year. It's too much. They will have to manage this situation. I'm keeping my eyes peeled to X constantly at the minute, refreshing, hoping that I'm going to see a picture of that ginger-haired god with the words Seahawks and traded above his face in the next few days.
That player is unbelievable. Rob, give us a little bit more about what we should know about the offensive lineman from Iowa.
Oh, I wasn't actually talking about him. I was talking about Max Crosby, who is another red-haired.
I've been waiting to ask you about this guy. I've been waiting to ask you about this guy. Well, what should we know? Is there a possibility that we'll get him to Seattle?
Crosby or Jennings Duncan?
Jennings.
Oh, well, I think there is a chance. I mean, look, he is. Listen, I was thinking this a lot while the combine was going on. They kept doing the slow motion replays of his wonderful haircuts, and I was thinking to myself, if I had to have a ginger mullet for the rest of my life, would I accept that versus being bald? And I thought, yes, I would. Because it just looked majestic. Look at the way it shimmered in the lights.
We can't just ask you that. We have to ask it. Brian, I don't know. Are you fully bald? I don't know. Or is that something that you would also go with? What do we think?
I know. I mean, I've never been a big fan of my hair, so maybe I would take that. But I think I'd actually take what I've got over the ginger mullet. That's just me. I don't think I would fit a ginger mullet very well, or vice versa.
Hey, it's for the people. It's for certain people who are supposed to have it, and excited to watch that go down. But Rob, well, you mentioned it, just you refreshing X and getting ready for that. I have to ask, when you're watching the draft, what is it like to watch the draft with Rob Staten?
That's a good question. What is it like to watch the draft? Probably really boring if you're not interested in the draft, because I'll just sit there talking about play. I mean, actually, to the people who don't like football, which is pretty much everybody I know in England, I imagine just sort of sitting there and watching a long list of names of players kind of walk onto a stage, shake hands with another man with red hair, and then leave is not very interesting. So it's probably quite boring watching it with me. But can I say something about Jennings Dunker? Because I do, the thing that, seeing as he's come up before we move on from him, a lot of people were getting a bit sniffy about Jennings Dunker around the Senior Bowl time because he actually tore his MCL during the season, played through the darn things, of course he did. But did not look quite as fast when he was getting on outside zone, when he was getting to that second level. And people criticized him and said the guy was playing with one knee in those games. He then recovered quickly enough to go and compete at the Senior Bowl, did everything at the Senior Bowl, then has gone to the Combine, done everything at the Combine. He was not only extremely explosive with his vertical and broad jump, he ran an exceptional short shuttle for a man who's 320 pounds as well, which speaks to his athleticism. Like, there are certain players that, for whatever reason, the NFL looks at them and goes, do you know what? That interior offensive lineman deserves to go in the second round or the third round. And then about 3 or 4 years later, we all turn around and go, how did Creed Humphrey last a pick 60? Or how did Quinn Miners last a round 3? You know, those kind of players. And I've got a feeling that Jennings Dunker is going to be the latest example. You plug him in, he's going to start for a long time, and he's going to be excellent. I don't see any issues with anything. It's 2 good years of zone blocking tape. You know what you're going to get from an IR offensive lineman. He's got a quirky, old-school offensive line personality, and he has a red-headed mullet. Like, that, for me, is the kind of player. You plug him in alongside Jalen Sundell and Gray Zabel, you've got your interior O-line sorted for the considerable future. So I think he would be an exceptional selection for the Seahawks. And if they could get him, if he lasts to round 2 and you can get Max Crosby first, double down on the Redheads, perfect. Sign me up for a bit of that.
How many like teammates are they going to draft on this offensive line? You got Jalen Sundell and Gray Zabel. You're going to get Mason Richmond, and then you're going to have Jennings Dunker. Like, there's got to be some limitation, or maybe they're just going to keep it all in the family. I don't know.
Hey, it's got to help chemistry, right? You got to imagine that is definitely something that helps you when you're actually on the field. But I'm curious for you, Brian, is there a name in this draft that, even if maybe it doesn't totally make sense right now, you're just like, man, I really like that player and I would love to see him in a Seahawks uniform?
You know, I mean, there's a couple draft crushes I've started to develop, but I'm nowhere near where I normally am in my draft prep. Kind of similar to where Mike is talking about cramming. Like last week, getting ready for the Combine, I have a few prospects I was kind of interested in. I think my biggest draft crush is probably D'Angelo Pons. Like, I know that he measured under 5'9", which is, shout out to the short kings out there. Like, I think he is an absolute baller on the football field. That's all I know. Like, every time I watch him play football, I'm like, this guy is great at what he does, and he brings a lot to whatever team he's going to be on. Now, can he play in the NFL at that size? Sure, there's going to be some questions. I think Upton Stout's a guy I really liked last year, and he was shorter, and people were wondering. Now he's a little thicker than D'Angelo Pons, but you could just see some guys are great football players, and it's going to translate. And I think he's one of them. Now, at his size, I think he's going to go a little bit later than he would have otherwise. I also have been kind of curious about some of the receivers in this class and some of the corners. So I like Colton Hood. I think he's a good fit for what Seattle likes to do. Brandon Cisse is an interesting one in that he was a teammate, speaking of teammates, of Nicky Manwari, and he was at the NFC Championship.
That guy's pretty good, right? That guy's
yes, he is. He was at the NFC Championship as a guest of Nick's to watch that game, and they talk regularly. And he's a little bit, to me, more of a developmental player at corner. I don't think his coverage is really NFL ready right away. But yeah, there's a few of those guys that have kind of stuck out to me, and mostly I'm just eagerly listening to all of Rob's pearls of wisdom and reading Jordan Reed and other people that I respect as well, Dane Brugler, and talking to them when they come on the show.
And Mike, you were at the Combine as you have been. What did you tell me off air? Like 9 years in a row you've been to this Combine?
Yeah, DK's Combine is my first Combine. DK, Debo, Kyler, I believe. Yeah, because I remember seeing Kyler. I was like, that dude's small. Yeah. So however many years that is. Yeah, Combine every year. Annual tradition.
Annual tradition. You are well versed in it. I'm curious, just from going to the combine as a Super Bowl champion, what are you hearing, and what do you remember from listening to maybe people in conversations, or something that you saw, a player that you saw, or even just the buzz around the Seattle Seahawks and being there representing this team?
Yeah, a lot of bad teams looking at the Seahawks roster being like, we could use that guy. Like a lot of guys. Ken was the big one that I kept hearing about. Like, yeah, a lot of teams. I was surprised. I thought Ken would have to go in there. I was like, Ken's probably gonna have to choose between like going to a bad team. I've been picking on too many of them, but just imagine a bad team. Ken would have to go to a bad team and get paid, or take a little bit off the top and then stay here. And then by the time I left, I was like, oh no, the good teams want Ken too. Like that's a huge problem. Like the Texans were one I really wanted them, but obviously they just kind of solved that with the Montgomery trade. But that's what I mean. Like the good teams were clearly, very clearly after running backs. It seems like we're shifting a little bit now. Like the good teams are like, oh no, we'll pay a running back. Like we're Kansas City Chiefs. We need a running back. Let's do it. So that was interesting. Same thing with like Reek. It was like, oh, it's funny. Like obviously I'm deep in the weeds of like the Reek Woolen experience. You know, I remember the day he was drafted, right? So if you're deep in the weeds, you are very much aware of like the criticisms of Reek within the fan base. Like they're very loud. They've been consistent for some years now. I mean, he's been benched by 2 different regimes as well, right? So you get it. And then you ask anyone outside of Seattle about Reek Woolen, they're like, yeah, I want him on my team. Please. How much does it cost? Like, I want one Reek Woolen, please. Yes. Like, has a lot of teams, a lot of fan bases as well. Same thing with like Kobe. It was like, oh, the Seahawks might not want that guy. Okay, cool. This defense over here could use that. There was a lot of that where teams looking at like, okay, the Seahawks have guys that other teams will want. Not so much on Shaheed. That one was surprising. Although when I went out there, I was not super aware of all the other free agent receivers. I kind of was like, oh, it's just like Alec Pierce and Mike Evans, right? And then I went and looked at a list. I was like, oh, okay. I could see why maybe a team might want like Romeo Dobbs instead, you know. So I got that. But yeah, definitely just there's a lot of interest, or at least there appeared to be, in the Seahawks roster, which makes sense. They just won the Super Bowl. But it was just the contrast between like you'll get like a lot of fans are like, we're good on Ken to a certain number, or Reek to a certain number, Boye to a certain number meaning dollar amount, Kobe to a certain number. And then you just go talk to some other teams like, yeah, okay, if they don't pay him, we will take that guy at whatever it costs, because we don't have a player like that. So that was probably one of the biggest takeaways, and also just how many teams it seems like are gonna like try this Mike McDonald thing on defense. You know, and that happens every time a team wins a Super Bowl. Yeah, it's just like of course, yeah, it's hard as hell. But just hearing it was like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, good. Like in my head too, I'm like, good luck. Like it's very hard. It's very hard to think like Mike does, to build it the way he builds it. You know, it's like just looking at a food, and I guess your plate, and like, all right, I'm gonna cook that. Okay, but do you know how long this was sitting? Do you know how much they put of this sauce, or how long they let this sit in the oven? You don't know. You just know the food tasted good, right? But I mean, you can just go make it, right? If I just put you in the kitchen, that's probably a lot of the issue teams are going to have this offseason. But yeah, there's a lot of interest in Seahawks people roster wise. And then the last thing, it sounds like, and Rob can probably speak to us a little bit more, it does sound like there are some spots in this draft where you can get better on defense in particular. Sounds decent, like a lot of edges will go. Sounds like this is a good year to actually need a safety in the draft. If you want one, maybe corners too. My perusing is I meant to ask you this, Brian. Is Pons the Indiana guy?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, it feels like there's a lot of like little but good corners in here. Like,
yeah.
The other guy is the Miami guy little too.
There's some little receivers too, as well. But yeah, I think, I mean, I'm interested in Rob's thoughts, but I think corner, safety, and edge feel like good position groups. And I think the receiver group, there's some interesting guys maybe later on, depending on what you're looking for. For whatever reason, there's a lot of 6'4", decent receivers in this class, like 6'4", 6'5", which you don't necessarily get all the time. I don't know if the Seahawks are going to go for a true X, but there's a couple guys that are interesting there.
Yeah, Rob, on that, where do you think and what do you think would be the most advantageous addition for the Seattle Seahawks? Obviously, Torrey Horton didn't finish the season. He showed a lot of promise, but it's still kind of an unknown. And then also just looking at the defense, where would you say is the opportunity to capitalize in the draft for the Seahawks?
I think at edge rush, it's more a draft on quantity rather than quality. I think it's quite a frustrating edge class. There's a lot of players that have a fatal flaw. So they will have like extremely short arms, for example, or they'll just lack speed and twitch off the edge, or their production's not very good, or in some cases their run defense is just appalling. And you kind of look through it and you go through every single player, and there's you do sort of have to weigh out the pros and cons of so many of these edge rushers. And I find it quite a frustrating edge class. And also, I think there's some very overrated players in this class on the edge rush. I think, David Bailey's a fine player, but this idea that he could be the second overall pick for me just doesn't really compute with what you see on there. Same with Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. Like, there were a lot of games last year where you watched Miami and you didn't even notice them on the field. So, like, this idea that they're like top surefire lock top tens, I'm not having that. The position that I think has got the best sort of thicker depth of quality is probably going to be cornerback. I do think you can get solid, traitsy cornerbacks in day 2 and early day 3. And some of them, do have some similarities to Reek Woolen, in fairness. Like, for example, Dalen Everett if you watch his tape, it's very similar to watching Reek Woolen for the Seahawks. Like, incredible athleticism, length, size. You're watching the tape 3 quarters in, you're thinking, what a game he's having. And then he does something really frustrating. And you're like, oh, yeah, that kind of knocks you down a peg or two from how you sort of view him. But he's not the only one, like Julian Neal at Arkansas, Malik Muhammad. You've got, I studied a player called Hezekiah Massas. Keep an eye on that guy from California. Like, he's going to go a lot earlier than I think people think. I really enjoyed watching him today. And I think he's someone who kind of warrants going in that late second round, early third round. We'll see how high he goes. But I thought he had a tremendous combine. And then you kind of watch the tape and he is really sticky in coverage. Not the fastest guy, like a 4.4, 4.45, I think, something like that. Really enjoyed watching him. I think he's somebody who's got a sneaky star potential there that you could find, day 2 or day 3. The cornerbacks are going to go very early, I think. I actually think Avian Terrell could end up being the first taken, and then Brandon Cisse could be the second. Like, there's just momentum behind those two in a way you're not seeing with Mansour Delane, who's got very short arms, didn't run. I think he's going to be slower than people think. Jamod McCoy is having a horrendous offseason. His agent is giving him bad advice. He's not gone to the Senior Bowl, didn't play at all last year, didn't go to the Senior Bowl, didn't run at the Combine. It's just, you can feel the negativity around him. And then very quickly, at receiver, it's quite deep at receiver. I still think the Seahawks are in this place now, especially because they're going to pay JSN. I think you keep looking for the value in that position. Like, Torrey Horton was someone who had no business being available when he was. You took him for a reason because of the injury history. There are a couple of players. One of them might know about is Deshaun Striblin, because he's an ex-Coug. And he has gone to Ole Miss. And his tape is excellent. Like, he had, I think, 9 drops in a 5-year college career. There are some players in this draft who got 9 drops in 2025. Like, his run blocking is excellent. He can do everything. Get downfield. He can sort of come back to the quarterback, run slants over the middle. Like, he is a very interesting player, tested very well. He's somebody to keep an eye on. And then somebody like Jacoby Lane, from USC, I think there's just something there. He's going to be available a bit later on. I don't think you have to take a receiver very early in this draft. I don't think the difference between, say, a Denzel Boston or a Casey Concepcion is that different to someone like Deshaun Striblin a bit later on. So, for me, it's about how can you turn that 32nd pick into something of real value. And for me, it's a trade chip at this point that I'd be dangling in front of Clint Kubiak and Tom Brady and saying, fellas, let's get this done and get Max Crosby to Seattle. Because if you do that, then I think the rest of the offseason takes care of itself for me.
Are Jake Bobo and Rashid Shaheed going to be Raiders? Like, is this going to be like Seahawks South for Clint Kubiak?
I think they're going to keep Shaheed. And I think the reason they're going to keep Shaheed is the dynamic kickoff has changed the game in the NFL. and the so many more kickoffs are being returned. I think you are missing a trick if you do not have somebody who can score every single time that ball is kicked. And I think you pay a bit more to keep him, knowing that he could score multiple return touchdowns next
It's
season.
just fun to say his name. It's just like Rashid Shaheed. It's like it's fun to say his name. And when you think about the highlight moments that he had for this team, it's like, what would the season look like without him, really?
And if they don't get him, just keep an eye on Caden Vetchian. I always mispronounce that second name, but I'm going to stick with that now until the end of the process, and they draft him and ask him how you pronounce it. He's at Iowa, unbelievable kick returner. So if they don't bring Shaheed back, go and get that guy.
Hey, well, make sure you all tune in and make sure that you are up to date with the names that Rob is saying, because I am hoping that we will get to, after the next Super Bowl, be able to shout this very podcast out and this very show for the names that we were discussing here. But before we wrap up, I do want to make sure that none of you get robbed of what these three guys have going on throughout this week. So, Brian, what's the hot blogger got up this week?
You know, it's a little bit of a quiet week in general because free agency kicks off next week, and I will be doing what I did last year, which is basically being live for 6-7 hours in a row as free agency kicks off to react to the news in real time. We had a lot of fun. We had like 35,000 people watching last year when we did that. Everyone seemed to have fun, so we're going to try to do that again. But this week, you know, honestly, AB, there's a show I want to do that probably most people will be really bored by. I went to the big data bowl, and I want to get at least one of the contestants, maybe the team that won, on to talk about their project. Speaks to like my tech geeky side, and I think also where the NFL is going. And I will say, when I was interviewing Mike McDonald for the show, and I told him I was going to the big data bowl later, he's like, "Oh wait, that's here?" I could see like he was like, "Oh man, I want to go to that." So
invite him. Give him the invite, Brian. You never know.
Yeah, I think I do know on that one, AB. But yes, gonna try to see if I can carve out a show around that sometime this week.
That's awesome. And Mike, what do you have coming up?
Shout out to the fellow nerds there, Mike McDonald. I'm actually wearing a True Media hat, by the way. That's what this hat is. Shout out to my fellow nerds at True Media. I actually ran into two different data analysts from two different teams, had combos with them in Indy. Fascinating which teams are like chasing edges and which teams are like rolling the window up with their hand. It's fascinating which teams are doing well. Anyway, I've been talking about the draft. I'm diving into it the last like 72 hours, full cram, full film study, numbers, everything. I'll probably have a mock this up this week, my first one. I'm looking at trade value stuff, everything. I'm in it now. I just needed a little bit more time. Like Brian said, I'm just a little behind, covered the Super Bowl. So, but I'm in it now. That'll drop this week. And Chris and I are going to probably do a Seahawks man-to-man pod. Like one last one before free agency, making some predictions on who's coming, who's going, what the numbers will look like based on everything I've kind of gathered over the last couple of weeks. So we're going to record that on Thursday. Give a little bit of time for the Seahawks trade for Max Crosby, and then we'll record. That should drop on Friday. I think that's what I got for the rest of this week.
And Rob, I'm sure you're going to be having some late nights getting ready for this draft and making sure you're up to date with all the things so that you can fill in our Seahawks fans. But what's this week look like for you?
Well, there's a couple of pieces up this week. One is talking about why the pass rush is the key to the whole offseason for the Seahawks. There's also another post that I posted earlier yesterday, which was looking at an alternative to Max Crosby that is worth checking out. I did a 2-round mock draft yesterday. There was a lot of detail in that, and every single pick has a blurb. So feel free to go and check that out. And also, I did an hour reaction to every day of the combine. So if people didn't watch it, or if they do want to have some sort of instant thoughts on each day, then check out Rob Stay in Football. It's all on there. So go and give that a watch.
I like it. And Rob, remind us, what was your snack or drink of choice while you're doing your work? Was it tea, or was it, you said cheese one time? What was it?
I do like a bit of cheese. What has it? It's been a bit of everything over the last few days, to be honest. We have these things in England. They're called I don't know if you have them or not. You probably have something that's American version, like these little mini egg things. Do you have them?
I like
Different-
the
Chocolate.
cream filled eggs.
No, not the cream egg. This is like you get like a little bag, and they're like chocolate eggs with like a sugar crust on them, and they are like crack over here.
Shoot.
So
Well,
when
send
it
them
gets-
our way.
when it
You
gets
know what?
to-
You know what chocolate eggs need is a sugar crust.
Yeah,
Like,
that
there's-
is crazy.
This is how Rob is able to
Fine.
do what he does. He
Okay.
can stay up late doing these shows because he's eating these chocolate eggs with sugar on their own.
and
And
the
you
yellow
don't
ones-
have you don't have the teeth that show that you've been eating a lot of these. Look, you have normal
No.
teeth, Rob.
But the yellow ones kind of taste a little bit special as well. Like, so everyone's after the yellow ones. So like they all come in different colors. They come out at Easter every year, and when they
Oh
come
yes,
out,
this is
a
them.
bag-
We do have them.
yeah, the Cadbury mini eggs. Yeah, that's what they are. So they come out, and there
We're
is a
just
bag
so
in the
healthy.
house.
Brian, Mike, and I are just so healthy that we.
I don't think
couldn't
I know
together.
we have those, but I don't think ours have a sugar coat.
I don't
do
think
they?
ours have a sugar coating.
I don't
It's
think they
the-
have. I've had those. I don't think
It's
ours
the
do.
shell. It's not like the sugar. It's like the shell is like it's a sugar shell, isn't it? It's made out of sugar. So, but you'll know what they are. But
That
I've been
sounds
eating a lot of
wildly
them.
unhealthy.
Basically, to cut a
Good.
long story short,
Hey.
That's why every
a
pick
lot
has a
of
blurb. You've been
mini
eating
eggs.
those.
Hey, we will all be on Max Crosby watch, and if he does end up in a Seattle Seahawks uniform, we're gonna get a king size, whatever that is, chocolate egg with the sugar ring around it, the special kind that Rob has over there. But make sure you guys stay tuned for all that these guys have coming up. There has never been a better time to go all in on the Seattle Seahawks. And hey, if you can't beat them, like I said earlier, just join us, Max Crosby. Just join us, Seahawks fans. It's way more fun from Rob, Mike, Brian, and myself. We are so happy to be back with you. We will see you next Tuesday. Good night and go Seahawks.